with Phil Zito, episode 387. Hey folks, Phil Zito here, and welcome to episode 387 of the Smart Buildings Academy podcast. In this episode, we are going to be diving in to an interview that I think you all are going to find pretty fascinating. So it's with Bill Spohn, and he has, I don't know how to describe. He's on so many different councils and advisories. He does consulting. He does all sorts of things on his podcast. He does a bunch of different fellowships. You're going to hear it all throughout the podcast. And he's the president and CEO of TruTech Tools. You know, I met Bill 5 years ago when he was just starting in the podcast space, which, by the way, he runs a podcast as well. And this guy has exposure to a lot of different technologies. And what I've been trying to do on the podcast is bring you interviews with folks who you traditionally wouldn't run into, who kind of sit on the edge of the traditional smart building space from a commercial side of things. You know, Bill has tremendous experience across a lot of different technologies, and you'll see this as he talks. But what I really want you to focus in on is what he's seeing within the built environment and how we can translate that to what we do on a day-to-day basis in the building automation space. So as always, everything will be available at podcast.smartbuildingsacademy.com/387. Once again, that's podcast.smartbuildingsacademy.com/387. And I do want to make a note, if you're watching this on the day it went live, we are still running our our Cyber Monday sale. They all mix together, folks. We're running our Cyber Monday sale on our website, 40% off all of our training courses, our online self-paced training courses. If you've been looking to get into building automation as a salesperson, programmer, designer, integrator, troubleshooter, service tech, project manager, definitely go to our site, courses.smartbuildingsacademy.com, and use code CYBERMONDAY22 to save 40% off of our training programs. Once again, that's courses.smartbuildingsacademy.com. And you need to use coupon code, all caps, Cyber Monday 22. All right, folks, let's dive into the interview with Bill Spohn. Kick off. So we'll just start. I'll give us a count, and then I will just start talking to you. So 5, 4, 3. All righty, Bill, thanks so much for being here today. So you have a broad background in the residential space, and folks are like, why in the world are we talking to residential on the Smart Buildings podcast? But that's because, as you and I talked about in the pre-call, we used to see the commercial sector drive the residential sector, but with the advent of smart homes, all of this energy efficiency technology and electrification being pushed into the built environment, we're seeing that first show up in the residential sector. And I know you talked about some tools you're seeing. You talked about techniques you're seeing. You talked about just the experience that people are having in the residential sector. So, you know, I want to unpack that, because what I challenge the audience to do is not get so caught up in, oh, you know, it's that tool, or, oh, it's that process, but rather think on a larger scale. How could this translate to the commercial sector? Because that's where breakthroughs happen. So with that being said, what advancements are you seeing right now that like really excite you in the residential sector? And I guess we could start off on the tool side, because I know that's near and dear to your heart.
Sure. So thanks for inviting me on, Phil. Always appreciate what you do and what you built over the past few years. Quick background on me: I'm a mechanical engineer by training, a bachelor's and a master's. I worked originally for Kodak, and then I I helped them die. No, I didn't really help them die. I left before they had trouble. But then got into the HVAC industry by working for Bacharach starting in 1988. So I sort of that's sort of my engagement with the HVAC industry. Immediately got involved with the weatherization programs. So that got me into building performance and then home performance, leading up to a 10-year career with Bacharach, 10 years with Testo, and now 13 years with TruTech Tools. Yeah. So I helped father and son found TruTech Tools, Jim Bergman and his dad. His dad passed away and Jim since divested. But Eric Preston and I now own the company. We do, I think we shipped about 55,000 orders last year to different customers
Nice.
of tools for managing the built environment. So that's sort of why we're here talking. Now, I want to just add another little sort of characterization I have in my mind. The built environment are meant to protect people from the outdoor environment. That's the main purpose. In the process, you want to provide comfort, and that includes IEQ, the whole environmental quality, which might mean light and sound, health, safety, and be an enabler of what the built environment is to do, both homes and commercial buildings. And I think the ultimate goal would be seamless and unnoticed.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this isn't a factor. The building is not a factor in what I go about doing inside the structure, the building. So with that sort of as the underlying premise to where we're going to go with the discussion today, there's a lot involved with automation that's coming and happening in the residential sector. As far as design, we want to talk about sort of design, implementation, and then sort of service and maintenance of those kind of three sectors. And I'll start sort of at the beginning with the design. There's some really clever work being done to do 3D modeling of residential structures, to do load and energy calculations.
Mm-hmm.
The enablement, pardon me. What that enables there is, we talked just before we started about building information management, or BIM, to sort of forecast the possible collisions between the trades.
I'm laughing because of our story of pipes running through ductwork.
Yes. A house that I owned at one point had a gas pipe running through the return.
God!
In the basement, and it was just sitting there. It could have easily been rerouted, but it wasn't. So the trades just didn't play well on that account. So from the design standpoint, I've seen some tools come up. And can I mention names of things?
Yeah, sure. Have at it.
This is a tool called Quick Model, KWIK MODEL. It was designed by a father and son team in California, Russell and Connor King. Russ King has a fantastic blog. He's written a book called HVAC 1.0, again, residential focused. Does a lot of training instruction. If anybody wants to take a peek into the world of HVAC, Russ King will give you a very detailed work. He's a professional engineer. He's done design, consulting, testing of many, many buildings and systems over the year. So I think from all that experience, he's condensed on this idea of a 3D model for a residential structure. Not so much about the construction, but about the HVAC, about the prime energy usage inside the structure, which usually is HVAC. So that's one of the interesting things I'm seeing happen there.
Interesting.
I'm also seeing things from the implementation, or say installation standpoint. Another software I'm a big fan of is Measure Quick.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, so that's where Jim Bergman, who is one of the founders of TruTech, helped create iManifold, and then has evolved into his own company called Measure Quick, which is basically it's a software platform for smart tools. And these are tools that measure things like refrigerant pressures, refrigerant line temperatures, and then the conditions of the air, temperature and humidity, using wireless probes that are connected via Bluetooth to an app and a smart device. the fact that these probes can sort of be placed all over, like a 12 position EKG over around the whole system, and even multi-compressor systems, systems that have various setups and designs, and be able to monitor real-time data and then pass it through algorithms, which will give status outputs as to the correctness of the installation. The maintenance issues, the problems that the system may have. And then just today on LinkedIn, and this is November 5th, 16th, they did a little publication of working with ACA quality installation, the ACA QI5 manual. Measure Quick will be able.
What is that for people who aren't familiar?
That's okay. So that's a process. I was actually involved in one of the original committee meetings that helped develop that standard, and I want to say that was 10 years ago. QI is basically, it's a checklist of how to correctly install an HVAC system in a residential structure. Limited square footage or limited tonnage, if you will, with that perspective. But it's all the things that should be done from heating, cooling, and ventilation to ensure a quality installation. It was really surprising to me when I got involved. Like, this didn't exist before. It was really out there in sort of call it trade practice. It was out there perhaps in trade schools, in books, but nothing condensed it together like the QI5 standard did. If I'm not mistaken, I think that standard might still be a free download as a service to the industry. So getting back to Measure Quick, now Measure Quick can also generate a QI report, a quality installation report that's coming with a relationship, a collaboration with ACCA.
Interesting. So that would be essentially equivalent to one of the ASHRAE standards, but tied to actual tools that now are able to assess and essentially hold things to the prescriptive standards. Yeah.
But really to hold it to the design.
To the design.
There's a design intent.
Performance.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a performance, call it commissioning, really. But it using the smart tools to collect and gather the data to fill into the form would make it easier for contractors to be able to deliver that to their consumers or customers.
Yeah. I wonder what, if anything, on the commercial side parallels that from the commissioning and the actual test and balance tools and things like that. I haven't run into a lot. I know that a former coworker of mine runs, I think it's Blue Rhythm, which is it's more like an asset management and a commissioning tool, but it's for the commercial side. But I haven't really heard of much. It still feels very much like we do everything with spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And perhaps there's opportunity here, because I always say the difference between residential and commercial
is more stuff,
size, volume, flow, but the physics, when you make measurements, the measurement of temperature, the measurement of humidity, the measure of pressure, all those things are independent of the volume. So it scales for the most part. There are nuances. I'm not going to say that it's an oversimplification, but some of these same types of sampling measurements would be valuable in the commercial space too. So
that's a little bit on the design side. What do you see on the execution side?
Sure. And I think on the execution side, the same kind of thing. And I'm not just going to focus on Measure Quick only, although I think it's important. It's something should be reviewed. There are smart tools that do put data together, will do calculations, streaming calculations real time, will generate reports. Tools from Testo will do that. Tools from Fieldpiece will do that. And their apps will collect and gather that data. And they're all these companies are working towards sort of their own ecosystem of data to do the HVAC measurements, the ones for AC and R, the ones for ventilation, the ones for heating, fossil fuel heating.
When you say ecosystem of data, does that mean that each manufacturer is going to have kind of their own proprietary ecosystem and they're not going to share? Or what does that look like?
Presently, yes. Each manufacturer will cater to their tools, but most major manufacturers are working with this shared system of MeasureQuick. And it's the only one that I know of that takes inputs from 40 different products. So you may have the products, or you may choose other brands, or you may mix and match, but all of it gets aggregated into the system. So they all sort of play in the same playground. Data playground.
So they built a platform with an API, and then people plug into it. Okay, cool.
I think it's actually it's more so they read the streaming Bluetooth data. So it doesn't go to the cloud first. It's on site. This is on site. Yeah.
That is interesting. So they're just directly parsing data sets from Bluetooth.
Right. Huh. And it's in cooperation with the manufacturers of the tools. And so it's literally like you bring up the app and there's a toolbox, and you can add tools to your toolbox. You turn them on, picks up the Bluetooth signal. If it's a tool that's sort of in their ecosystem and the MeasureQuick ecosystem, it picks it up, and then you can use data from that tool. You assign it a location because the app is ignorant of what's happening in the real world. It knows the measurements coming in, but it doesn't know where those probes are placed to gather that data.
Interesting. So what else is happening on the install side that interests you?
I think the awareness of the system is not independent of the structure it's installed in. So I'll say building performance is probably the best way of describing that. Also, sort of like in full disclosure, not that I have to, but I'll do it anyway. I'm also the treasurer of an organization called the Building Performance Association, which is a nonprofit that's geared towards building performance, at this time primarily residential, and encouraging the growth of tools, products, techniques to have buildings perform better. And again, primarily home performance. There's a national and regional conference. It's called the Home Performance Conference. We just finished a regional in Minneapolis last Monday and Tuesday. I was up there. The next national is coming up in Seattle in April for the Home Performance Conference. Really a lot of great detail coming out of research, manufacturers, national labs, weatherization programs, contractors. A lot of great information coming together. And I'll just keep riffing here because you're not stopping me. So
no, okay. Seriously, it's not riffing. What is building performance? So you say building performance better, but what is it? And then what does this term better even mean? Like better at what?
So it's again, if you just talk about residential, which again is like more my focus, is house as a system.
Yep.
The flow of energy and moisture and air. So HAM, heat, air, and moisture, the flow of that through a structure is then impacted by the way the heating, cooling, and ventilation system management to the benefit of the occupants. Going back to my premise, you want this to be seamless. You don't want to know.
I'm laughing because I've got the sliding patio door cracked with a fan to pull cool air into the house because the house gets too warm. And then I've got a humidifier sitting here. You could probably see the steam, maybe.
I thought that was just your ears. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. So I got a humidifier. So it's like all ad hoc because, this house is just, it's so well insulated that it gets hot and stays hot. And it's not, it was well designed, but it's not well designed. Yeah. So it's just interesting to me, all the things that I'm starting to consider that I didn't know were issues until people made me aware that they could be issues.
And issues with potential solutions. So I'm going to take a little side path now and talk about the house that Bill built.
Yeah.
um, so taking all this collective experience over 30 years with home performance, building performance, HVAC, my wife and I decided we were going to build our forever home, which would be the first and last house we built. We found a nice plot of land and went about engaging with my colleagues in my network to help germinate ideas and create a plan for a house that we now live in. I recently, so the house is built, it's a volumetric modular house.
What does that mean?
Means boxes were built in a factory.
Huh.
And 4 boxes, 14 by 11 by 64, were trucked to the site and lifted and set on a foundation, also built in a factory, panels, set on a foundation, and all done in one day.
Really? That's interesting.
So this modular construction, I was recently interviewed for a magazine called Offsite Builder, which is a new one as of this January. I was interviewed for sort of the top 5 things to keep in mind if you want to get a high performance modular home. So I could give you the link if you want to share that, but
yeah,
it might be an interesting article. It's a quick read, got a lot of nice pictures in it, but it talks about sort of me reflecting back on the process of doing this. I forgot your question.
Well, I asked you what the modular home was, but then you went and you answered it.
Okay.
So
yeah, so that again, my experience comes from saying, okay, you're talking about your house. What can you do?
Well, I was just more so I was just complaining.
Okay.
I was just complaining because I'm sitting here trying to keep my eyes from blinking rapidly because I can feel how dry it is, despite the fact that I've got this humidifier pumping air. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this sucks so bad.
just a thought here, that cracked open patio door.
Yeah, I know.
It's continuing to add sort of like negative load to the humidity.
Yep, I know. Yeah. But it's like that or I sweat my ass off.
So what you need, like we started to talk about this, the implementation, and I'll get back on track here. But we have an ERV in our house. We live in a northern climate zone 5. Humidity isn't too much of an issue for too many days. Low humidity could be an issue, but because the house is so well sealed, just activities of daily life, showers, cooking, running the faucet, whatever, breathing generates enough humidity in the air that we never drop below 40.
Jeez. We're in northern Arizona.
Yeah, very, very different.
It's like single digit humidity. It sucks.
So an energy recovery ventilator, of course, just it's should be familiar with it from commercial buildings. Managing humidity, managing the fresh air. So in my case, again, talking from personal experience, my concept was to create a tight structure that had very little exchange of air with the outdoors. To use a conditioning ERV, which actually gives us a little bit more. It's got a heat pump in it, 1/3 of a ton heat pump. So it can actually warm up cold outdoor air and cool down hot outdoor air by exchanging it with the 2 streams. So it's an active system, not just a passive media. To have that manage the fresh air and then to heat and cool the fresh air as an independent system. So independently ducted fresh air. So fresh air gets managed by itself, and then heating and cooling of fresh air is managed by another system.
Yeah, we definitely, I'm telling you, like this HVAC system here, totally the people on the podcast are like, why are you talking about this? But just stuff, it's got to get ripped out. It's so bad. It's 15 plus years old. It's just no bueno. Yeah. But one thing I am very interested in is the modular building, because that is something that modular and 3D building, 3D printing building
Mhm.
I saw a home in Houston, I guess, that was stucco and got 3D printed. It was pretty interesting. It's like the first multi-story home that was 3D printed with stucco. It was kind of cool. But what was the experience with modular building? Because I think that, in my opinion, is a solution that we don't think of in the commercial space. That would be pretty interesting to see.
Yeah. So there's generally there's panelization
Mhm.
and then on-site construction. That's really good from the standpoint of less volume when transporting. In our case, we use volumetric modular, which means boxes were built so that takes up more space and maybe isn't advantageous for longer hauls, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Uh, we had to nail down everything in the design, um, and change orders. A few were written, but they really don't like to have them after they have a lock-in date
Yeah,
because
I can
then
imagine.
they move them through the factory. So it's scheduled, materials on site. And so ours was built in October of 2019, pretty much
Hmm.
started on October 1st, finished on October 30th, all 4 boxes. So everything, is pretty large drawing set, but everything was figured out. The lighting, the heating, the heating, cooling, the ventilation ducts, electrical, plumbing, everything was pre-set up. So there's literally in my basement, there's a nest of connectors that
Hmm.
bring together everything before the load panel, the load
So
center.
it's like a bunch of Molex and just kind of
Yes.
plugs together.
Plug, plug,
Ah,
plug, all labeled. Yeah.
that's really cool.
And even the load center itself was installed in the factory in one module. They flipped it upside down, tacked it to the outside of
Mhm.
and then when they brought it on site, they untacked it, dangled it in as they dropped it in to the foundation and then attached it to the wall.
Hmm.
So the more it's more economical, of course, to do the work in the factory, but not everything can be done in the factory, of course.
Yeah, like your final finish out and all that stuff.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
probably interesting.
So
Huh.
things like we used the system we used. Again, I'm going to name names. Is a medium velocity heating cooling system by a manufacturer called Detson, Dettson, up in Montreal.
Hmm.
They were a favorite of our builder, and they just happened to come out with a cold climate heat pump that goes down to minus 21, still puts out like 88%. So that checked the boxes for me. So we have our house is 2 stories above ground, 1 story below ground. Everything's conditioned.
Hmm.
It's zoned, but everything's conditioned. And we run 4,400 square feet with like an average of 8.5 foot ceilings. I could tell you the exact volume. I think it's like 43,000 cubic feet on a 2-ton air source heat pump through summer and winter in climate zone 5.
Really?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
But do
And
you
that,
keep it like crazy temperatures, like 80
no,
degrees in the summer?
no, it's probably 75 to 76. But
Hmm.
again, we try to control the humidity, and that makes a huge difference for me, at least.
Yeah.
Lower humidity at a higher temperature, I'm actually more comfortable than higher humidity at a low temperature.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that ASHRAE 55 and thermal comfort
Yeah.
corridor,
Hmm.
where you can almost drive it up to 80 degrees at the
Yes.
right relative humidity with, if you have, some active ventilation like fans.
Right.
Yeah. That's interesting. And then you do solar and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. So we plan to do solar. Took advantage of the federal tax benefit, and also I'm also involved, volunteer for another organization called Solar United Neighbors. I'm on their Pennsylvania Technical Advisory Committee.
Hmm.
And they have things called solar co-ops. If anyone's interested,
What
there
is a
might
solar
be
co-op?
so there might be one in your state. Look up Solar United
Huh.
Neighbors.org. It's a .org.
What is this?
Um, they have they've collected for various states, and I can't remember all the states, but I know Pennsylvania, of course, they have one. But they have like a home organization, people working there lobbying for solar rights and providing like details on choosing home batteries, choosing electric vehicles, just sort of unbiased information from a source whose goal is just to promote the use of solar energy.
This is interesting. I'm like sitting here looking at this open co-ops and closed. Here, hold on one second. Let me do something here. Grab this for those of you listening to this, watch the recording. Because I'm going to be video sharing. So share screen, Chrome tab, share, and show on stream. There we go. So this, right? Yeah, this is interesting. So I got closed and completed co-ops right here in Arizona. There's nothing in Prescott, but oh well, Northern Arizona, 2022, Northern Solar. This one you're not seeing anymore because I'm only sharing a tab. But interesting, yeah, they got like, that's pretty cool.
So what they do is the co-op takes people who are interested, and the commitment isn't like a cash commitment or even a commitment you're going to use solar, but a commitment of interest. So they try to collect up enough people. We did the co-op, the Allegheny County, which is where we live in Pittsburgh. We did the Allegheny County co-op in 2018, and I think 169 people were interested. And what they did is then they put it out to bid. This block of business, they put it out to bid with local solar contractors, and the group itself nominates people to evaluate the bid. Sun does not get involved in it. So it's people, they basically provide the forum to collectively purchase solar. So I got a pretty good rate from a local provider, local installer that serviced the whole co-op for everyone who chose to engage. And just choosing to sign on the co-op does not make a commitment that you will engage. There you go. So is that if you go to the 2018,
this is the 2022.
And now they're even doing EV chargers too.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I think you go down a little bit more.
I saw the EV charger one. Yeah. That was,
is this the 128? Right, yeah.
Here you go. Here's the EV charger one.
Right.
So interesting. All right.
Yeah. So
I'll pull us back.
Sure. So yeah. So we put in 12 kilowatt DC system, 32 panels, 375 watts each. And we have yet to go positive on our electric meter. We have a net meter. You can do that in our state.
Yeah.
So we have yet to draw more from the grid than we have put back on the grid. Interesting. So our meter is reading like 999,875. So it's hovering right there just below zero. So that means we've been net zero in the impact and the effect of the utilities are battery.
Yeah.
So basically when we reverse the meter, it just shows up on our bill as credits when we overproduce our needs. When we're underproducing our needs, then we draw back from the grid. But in the net over 12 months, it's been zero. And there's a connection charge or a billing charge of $12.52 a month. So our total charge in 2021 for electric use was $154.
Oh, wow.
There's also no gas on our site too.
Huh.
I'm a person of extremes.
Well, it's interesting to say the least. It's interesting to see how it all got put together, because it's something that I think if we really want to deal with the skilled labor challenges, then this model of doing everything on site, so in my opinion, it's easier to do stuff in a factory. You still need the labor, but now you've got multiple sites being serviced by a single location.
Right.
So you have that efficiency, because how much efficiency is lost simply traveling from site to site?
Right. And dealing with weather.
Weather delays, all that jazz. Yeah.
And the materials of construction are also under roof in the factory.
Yeah.
So potential moisture degradation problems that could come from a semi-exposed structure sitting in the middle of a field. There's a cute little video called if houses or if cars were built like houses. It's like a 5 or 6 minute video. A friend of mine, Corbett Lunsford, did it. He did it based upon something someone wrote in a book. I can't quite remember the book, but it just takes you down the path. We accept that cars are built in factories. Why should we accept that houses could not be built in factories?
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, it seems like it's part education because you have to educate an industry that something as different as possible. And then without getting like too conspiracy theory ist, I mean, you have all the ties into a build on site model. I mean, you have a whole economy built around a build in site model or build on site model. So how does that economy get affected if you shift from a build on site to a build in factory?
Yeah, I think like a lot of things, it's a choice for a builder to move in that direction. And we found a builder who was interested in high performance, had taken classes and training in it. So the language I was speaking resonated with them.
Yeah.
And then a factory they had worked with for 15 years who trusted them when they brought crazy ideas forth that came from my list.
Well, it would seem like if you got it systemized, you could gain higher margin as an early adopter, at least until the greater market caught up. Because until you have market pressure to push your sell price down, you're going to be able to draw higher margins because of simply the efficiencies.
Right. I mean, in terms of waste also, literally I took the factory tour before our house was built, for another house, twice during the time our house was being built. When they cut off a piece of scrap, they put it in a labeled bin. If there was another project that needed something that size, it was used.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, then you're less coupled to material shortages because and more predictability because you're using Molex connectors and things like that for electrical.
Yeah, and they built the interior walls first, structural members, framing, then the interior walls were put up first. That way they could come back around and air seal every penetration on the exterior wall.
Yeah. I don't know if it was you that was telling me or if it was another podcast guest that you can actually take a thermal gun and you can look at the walls and you can look at where the beams are and you can see thermal differences. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's thermal conduction.
Yes.
And in our design, we built with 1.5 inches of EPS foam, graphite impregnated EPS foam, which serves as like a Yeti cooler all the way around the structure. Anything that isn't a window or a door has got this foam insulation to serve as a thermal break. So if you thermal imaged our house when it's warm inside and it's cold outside, you're not going to see much of that thermal bridging. You won't be able to see those patterns.
Yeah, that is interesting. And then, I mean, I hope the audience is seeing the dots that connect between this and the commercial sector.
Yeah.
Because there are direct connections.
Right. So it's the sort of the operating costs.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much for a consumer, perhaps, but for a building owner, building manager, operating costs can be impacted by a good airtight building design. And then there's the sort of the comfort and health impacts. There are some, and I couldn't list them, but there are some building owners who are publishing in their lobby the air quality parameters inside the building real time.
Did I tell you about that in Carmel where the wife and I went last week?
Yeah.
And they had the air quality,
the
little
blue thing
circles
on the wall. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was Carmel Air or something, and yeah, that was interesting. They were advertising it,
And I think, and this relates to just humans. Do you have a smartwatch on?
Yeah, right
Okay,
here.
so do I. All right. So we're interested in measuring parameters about our physical health.
Mm-hmm.
That awareness is really starting to peak, and people are starting to look at the parameters in the environment. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about IAQ monitoring devices that are hitting
Yeah.
all over the residential sector. So let's
Yeah,
move
because I'm,
into
I'm very interested in that. Because do you follow the Huberman podcast at all?
no.
So he's a neuroscientist out of Stanford, I think.
Mhm.
Very popular, million plus subscriber podcast. And he did a podcast in this long form. It's like two hours long. And he did a podcast on sleep. And so he talked about, the moment you wake up, you need to get a certain Kelvin light. So like I've got different lights that wake me up and certain sleep hygiene things you have to do. He talked about the effects of EMF on sleep within a space. And I didn't realize this. I sit in a very, very heavy EMF room all day long, and the frequencies that come off of all of this gear and just how it affects. And it's noticeable when I step out of this office and I step outside, the change in my just biology, how I feel just going and sitting on the stone patio in the backyard in the sun, because it's always sunny here in Arizona. And how it changes things. So yeah, with that, let's pivot to IEQ, because this is very top of mind to me right now.
Yeah. So IAQ is still, again, my business partner, Eric, would say he'd like to have a definition for IAQ, for good IAQ. There are ASHRAE 62.2 and 62.1 do talk about different parameters that should be maintained for optimal indoor air quality. EPA has I believe it's called an Indoor Air Plus program, where they're starting to talk about things, not even starting, they're pretty well developed along, talking about parameters for healthy buildings, healthy residences. I've seen studies over the years, because I've been studying and involved in the measurement side of an IAQ since 1995. We're looking at initially at CO2 and non-dispersive infrared CO2 sensors at BACRAC to assess sort of the air freshness as a surrogate indicator. Some study in University of Toronto, I believe, indicates that looking at CO2 is a good surrogate indicator of overall air quality. Some people argue with that, but I think it's still a good measure, because it really talks about the bio impact of, if you got occupants and your CO2 is rising, then the occupants' exhalation is not being replaced with fresh air.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we've seen things like a whole generation of, and I would say dozens of indoor air quality monitors that measure all kinds of parameters. A popular one now to measure is particulate matter, anywhere from PM 0.1 to PM 10. Usually PM 2.5 is the one that's centered on as being the one that's most impactful on people's health. And I believe it's because there's something about the nature of the particle that it can pass through the lungs into the blood and then into the brain. Now, that particle is not speciated. You don't know what that particle, when you're measuring particles, you're just measuring stuff that occupies a certain size regime as deemed by the sensor. If that particle is of a noxious or toxic substance, or has absorbed a noxious or toxic substance, then the dangers can start to compound from that. So particulate measurement, and there's sort of one traditional school of thought, which is more residential, was room by room monitoring or space monitoring for particulates, for total volatile organic compounds, TVOCs. And again, not speciated. The sensors would trigger on a variety of things, including peeling an orange or opening a bottle of wine. So things you might not consider normally hazardous unless you do both of them, or you don't like pulp or something like that. TVOCs, particulate matter, carbon dioxide, and of course, temperature and humidity seems to be the primary ones. And we've seen some sensors that will also measure NO2. In fact, I'm on another working group that's talking about indoor emissions from gas cooking appliances and NO2 or nitrogen dioxide accumulations, which do have a direct tie to lung health and then brain health.
Interesting.
And of course, carbon monoxide is another big one that gets measured all the time. That's directly toxic. Excuse me. So the room monitors or space or area monitors are used a lot. The sort of the quality of the sensors, and I don't have it at the top of my head, but there's a website that categorizes sensors against a certain test protocol. A manufacturer can submit their sensor and then be evaluated for free under a battery of tests. And then you can sort of get sort of like a Consumer Reports, if you will, report.
Really?
To say, yeah, is this one a good one for measuring ozone? Because that's another thing that gets measured. Is this one a good one for measuring particulates against laboratory standard equipment? And it's done free of charge. All the manufacturer has to do is submit it. I'll have to.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that, because now I'm leaving this conversation wanting to go buy some particulate. I've been thinking about buying some air quality meters for a while. So yeah, because it's so freaking hard. You go on Amazon and you look at the reviews, and most of the people are just reviewing the user interface.
Yeah.
That's all they care about. They don't care about so much sensor accuracy.
Okay, I think I found it. Let me just make sure.
What's it called?
It's done by the South Coast Air Quality Management District, and the website is aqmd.gov/AQ-spec.
Yep, I got it. Here we go.
So the AQ-spec talks about all the products, the evaluations that are done.
Here we go. Let's do this. Show on stream. There we go. Yeah. Interesting.
Are you at aqmd.gov/AQ-spec?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, dash spec.
Yeah.
Forward slash
AQ-spec.
Oh, AQ-spec. Let's go to that.
And then
look
go to
at that.
evaluations.
Huh.
And now there's a summary table of reports for particular measurement sensors.
Oh, man. That's really cool. I'm not buying that one for $5,000.
Right.
Huh.
But the air quality egg, $249. It's a 0.99 R squared.
What does that mean?
That's the deviation from like a perfect score. Like if you were to plot a linear line, 0.99 is really good.
And it does PM 2.5, PM 1, and PM 10. Huh. Interesting.
But you can see the list goes on and on. Dylos is another popular one.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take another little divergent path for a second.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, no worries.
Remember, you invited me. Okay,
I did. This is fun. I you know what? I don't care. I don't care what you think, audience. I enjoy this.
That's the premise of my podcast.
That's how you get 0-star reviews.
Yes, right.
People are like, this guy talks about nonsense.
So actually, Phil came on my podcast called Building HVAC Science. If you go to buildinghvacscience.com or put it in a podcast app, you'll find my podcast. Phil was on. The episode isn't out yet, but it probably will be by the time you publish this. Anyway, so the divergent topic here is a local group in Pittsburgh because we get such a bad rating on air quality for real. Just because part of it's terrain, part of it's industry. There's a group called ROCIS.org, ROCIS. That's the reduction of outdoor contaminants in indoor spaces. So it's a nonprofit organized by Linda Wigington, who's a Hall of Fame member for the Building Performance Association.
Yeah.
She's collected some scientists, and then she goes out in our local area. In some remote cases, she will turn over a bag full of something like 11 or 12 indoor air quality monitors to citizens who are interested in collecting data in their own homes and outside around their homes.
This is fascinating.
And then you fill out a diary of sort of activities like, yep, we burnt the roast. That explains why the PM was high. Or we opened the windows. And in my case, that's why the radon went down. We didn't start talking about radon yet, but we had a radon problem here. Anyway, collects it and then runs it through the brains in the database of these scientists who come back and I think it's the first sort of user level study for indoor air contamination.
That's interesting.
But also looking at the impact of outdoor air, because if it's like a bad ozone day or a smog day or something like that, how much of that leaks in again now through the tightness of the building structure?
Yeah. Well, so the podcast that I'm recording after this one is me going through ASHRAE 62.1, 2022, and just exploring it. That's something that at least I find entertaining to do on the podcast. I don't know if other people find me reading a spec fascinating, but we talk about it so much in the industry and it seems like people don't understand it. And one of the things I found interesting about 2022 is they're starting to have an increased focus on outdoor air quality. Because we had a guy, I worked at a company, and there was a guy who was always going out sick, and no one could figure out why he was freaking sick. And he worked on this floor that didn't have a lot of people on it, and no one else was really getting sick. Well, it just so happened one day that one of the service techs found that the outdoor air intake used to be fine, but they redid the exterior of the building. So now it was a loading dock area. So he was just breathing in carbon monoxide that was going right into that outdoor air intake. And that diffuser was just dumping right on him. And it was the first diffuser in the duct run. So he was getting the most of that air. And because we know systems don't tend to stay balanced well. And so he was getting all of that fresh carbon monoxide, and it was basically starving his brain of energy or of oxygen. And so he was getting sick. And as soon as they fixed that, he was healthy again.
Yeah. There's, I'll throw another thing out there. There's something called the Hayward Score, HAYWARD score.
I think I know what that is. I think I've heard that from another. Oh no, that's different.
Yeah. So this is Bill Hayward, whose family was severely impacted by the poor, debilitating air quality inside their home, and he's created a scoring system. It's a free score. You answer a bunch of questions about where you live, and it will come back and say, these things that you are detecting, you as a person. So I'm going back to the guy who felt different in two different places. Yeah. He was the sensor. He was basically, loaded up in one area, became unloaded in another area. And so the Hayward score is an interesting thing to do. It's especially interesting if like a husband and wife or cohabitants in the same home or structure answer the questions at the same time. You will get a variety of answers pointing towards how individual indoor air quality can be for people.
That is interesting. Yeah. I've never thought about using the human as a sensor.
Yeah. So
You know what would be really cool with all
Mhm.
these smartwatches is if they found a way to make them sensors that then you were able to collaborate all the data together.
well, and actually, there was a guy who's founded a company for central IAQ monitors who started out making portable ones that people would wear when commuting to work to
Hmm.
actually assess what's happening different times of day within a room or within a city. I am going to jump out again and talk about humans as detectors.
Mhm.
So this is fact. In 1984, a guy named Stanley Watrous was a construction engineer at the Limerick Nuclear Power Plant in Pottstown, Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
When he would walk into the plant, he would set off the radiation detectors that normally get set off if you got exposed inside the plant.
Huh.
He was contaminated with radon. This led sort of to the discovery of radon.
Really?
Yeah.
So he's picking up so much radon at his
At
house.
home,
Holy crap.
that he
must
brought
have
it to work.
You know how much that must have been?
Yeah.
Wow. Holy moly. So that's where radon mitigation came from, huh?
Yes, 1984, Pottstown, Pennsylvania.
Only 1984?
I know that shocked me.
Wow. That's
And
pretty wild.
someone else has told me, I think it was Joe Medash, like we're in the golden age of radon. Like this is there. It's a series of, and I'm going to get this a little bit wrong, but a series of decay steps in the
Yeah.
whole kind of sisterhood of atoms that come out of the process.
Yeah.
So we're in the golden age of decay.
What does that mean?
That means that there's a lot of it happening right now. Like it could have been because of the way, geology, the earth, everything like that. We're now in the phase where something is decaying and there's a lot of it present. And it's not radon itself that's bad, but it's the compounds that are created after you inhale it. It gets into your system and then it decays within something like 3.5 days. Again,
Yeah.
I might be getting that wrong. There's a whole science. We recently attended last 2 years the American Association of Radar Technologists and Scientists, something like that. AARST. Tremendous amount of information, tremendous amount of science behind it. And they also do soil gas testing. Now that's impactful for commercial because sometimes commercial buildings are built over brownfields or may have radon
that's a
issues.
big push. Yeah, to use brownfield instead of greenfield.
Yes. So the study of vapor intrusion hits the commercial area, radon hits the home area, but this group AARST has standards for doing the testing, doing the level monitoring, and the equipment for doing that kind of work. So that's definitely a commercial crossover topic between radon and soil gas.
So one of the things that's interesting to me is how we as humans tend to establish cause to data, and we're not very good at measuring causality. And so you see a lot of rise in cancer, a lot of rise in things like that. I wonder if that is due to a lot of the contaminants that we've never measured before that we're becoming aware of. That's interesting.
So going back to some things that excite me, I talked about the products that are used for area monitoring. There is really only one product I'm aware of. It's called a Haven that monitors the central air handler. We sell it at TruTech Tools. It's developed with a group out of Vancouver, BC. It measures particulates. It actually measures barometric pressure. It senses airflow and temperature and humidity. And they're working they have an integration such that it's a Wi-Fi device. It reports to the cloud and then can come back down to an app.
Interesting.
as
Yeah, I'm
well as a
looking at it
dashboard.
right now.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's got a Google or a iTunes app or
Yes.
a Apple app.
Yep.
Huh. Interesting.
But there's for the contract, it needs to be installed by a contractor. The contractor has access to a dashboard where they can monitor, literally monitor all their customers that have one installed and be watching what's happening with their systems, the air quality. They have also created a control module that has two 24-volt dry contact relays in it. So you can actually now program in actions based upon the central air condition.
So you could, if you could scale a system like this or find a similar system like this to the commercial space, a service organization could go and sell IAQ monitoring as a service.
Yes.
Man, there's so many as a service solutions that, oh, that's really cool. Huh.
There's another one that's actually in that space now. They don't have a central monitor, but they have room monitors, and that's IQI. And that's another product we sell at TruTech. But there's a number of large organizations that are interested in that for looking at building air quality. I think it's IQI Air.
Got it. Yep. Yep, I'm looking at it right now. The chemical air purifier.
That might not be it. There's two companies.
No. You're right.
It's
That's not it.
IQAir.com. Empowering the world to breathe cleaner.
Yeah. I got hit by an ad.
Right.
So you know how they put ads on keywords so that as soon as you, there it is.
Shoot, that might not even be the right one yet.
No, I got the right one because it's your website.
Okay.
Right, your website came up when I searched for it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's got all these different sensors in here. Huh. Oh, that's not too bad. $300.
Right. And it also has control modules.
Yeah.
So you could turn on plug-in devices. And I think they'll be coming out with a relay soon, so you could control something that had a 24-volt relay on it.
Oh, this is pretty neat, man.
24-volt control.
Huh. All right.
So where do you want to take this conversation, Phil? This is your podcast. Just you and me talking. There's no one else listening right now. There's no one else listening.
Well, I have a feeling that my daughter's about to bust in here. She's homesick. So just if you hear any noise, because she just called me on my phone. So where do I want to take this? Well, I mean, we've unpacked a lot of stuff and we're at about an hour now. So and it's funny because you're like, I don't know if we got an hour, and I'm like, yeah, we got an hour. It's good. But I would say, what would you want to leave the listeners with? Like, what is top of mind?
I think there's lessons to be learned from, if we're talking to mostly commercial listeners, from the residential space. And I would also say, if you're experiencing, anything in terms of home performance or IAQ in the home, seek some solutions.
Yeah, there's a lot of solutions out.
There's a lot of solutions available. They still need vetting. Nothing's perfect. But some of these things will perhaps, you can improve sort of your life at home, but also you'll learn something about how to manage a larger commercial building. And the two worlds can kind of correlate.
Oh, here's one. And it's totally cool if you don't have an answer for this. With these organizations that are forcing people to work from home, what is their liability if the home environment is toxic to the occupant? And now they're forcing them to remain in the home more than they normally would. I have to imagine that would fall on the occupant, but
I think it would, although I have one anecdote, and this is when I first started to work from home in 1999.
Yeah.
So I've been doing WFH for quite a while. My boss at the time with Testo said, "Hey, I got to come out and make a visit and make sure it's a safe work environment." I'm like, "Are you serious?" He said, "I really feel it's incumbent upon me to do that." So he did. I mean, he just might have wanted to visit, but and I don't know if it's any kind of regulation out there, but some people may be thinking that way, that we do have to look out for the home environment if
Well,
we're calling it an office space.
and also, I mean, just as a greedy capitalist, is the home environment as conducive to you being effective at work?
Sure.
And like, what can I do to make that? Like, you know, do you have a desk? Do you have good lighting? You know, what?
Good ergonomics at your desk.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you going to end up with, carpal tunnel syndrome or a low back pain?
As I straighten up my posture.
Yeah, me
right
too.
when you mentioned, I'm like, because I tend to like crane over.
Yeah.
It's not good. Okay. Yeah. Anything else? This was fun.
I think, again, this is something I've recently become more involved with. Is I think there's a move towards electrification, and like I embraced that when we built our house.
Mhm.
Is everything here runs off electric, and we did go with solar. I think it's a responsible move. It's an interesting move, and will probably benefit both economically and environmentally.
Mhm.
From my perspectives. I think in the commercial side, especially, with changes that are coming from the Inflation Recovery Act, at least for consumers, there's going to be a lot of interest in doing a lot of things. I'm not exactly sure what comes out in the commercial sector from that, but I do believe
179 Delta is going to be huge.
Yeah.
I mean, if folks don't know what that is, I mean,
Why don't
getting
you explain it
$5.
for this folk here?
So I'll give you my cursory understanding with the caveat that this is just me reading through it and I'm not a tax lawyer.
Right.
But essentially 179 Delta allows you to get a tax deduction up to $5 a square foot against a 2007 ASHRAE 90.1 baseline. So essentially, I don't know how you prove out the baseline yet, reduction, but if you do some ECM, some energy conservation measures, you can get up to $5 a square foot of tax deduction for those energy conservation measures as you approach a 50% reduction. So it's a sliding scale. The other thing is you have to have prevailing wages on the labor that executes the work. And the neat thing about it, from what I understand, is that nonprofits that don't pay tax can pass this along to their contractors as a tax deduction. If I'm reading it right, with a bunch of if I'm reading it right caveats.
Right.
But I've said for a long time now, I feel like we're entering a retrofit market. And this would just fuel that because your 90.1 baseline, I think it'll apply to new construction as well if you build an efficient building, but I haven't seen clear direction on that. But it'll definitely apply to retrofits and major finish outs.
Got it.
So yeah, I mean that's big. $5 a square foot on 100,000 square foot building is $500,000 of tax deduction. If you hit 50% reduction.
Sure. And something similar has happened in the residential space only for new construction, but it's called 45L. And again, I'm just going to clone off of all Phil's ifs, just as he said a moment ago. But you can get up to $5,000 per project tax relief for a builder if they build an energy efficient home. More and more, I believe if it's zero net energy ready or zero energy ready home, the credit is $5,000. So what they're encouraging builders to do is to find customers that appreciate it and then go ahead and execute those. And then they can have a home energy rating score done, or HERS
Yeah.
rating done from ResNet organization, and use that as the proof off. I think it's a 2006 baseline.
Yeah.
For the same, kind of square footage and accoutrements and the structure.
Yep.
And then sort of before I leave the topic, I'll just throw two out there, sort of like forward-thinking ideas, sort of on the cusp. Water efficiency. And
yeah, I live in Arizona.
Yeah, right. So there actually is a home energy rating score, or HERS H2O score, that can be given to a residence to assess the water efficiency rating. It's straightforward, but I think it's impactful to begin to look at that, because from what I heard, there are certain municipalities, because of the restrictions and the future unavailability of water to serve their customers, are cutting off building permits. Like, you can't build. Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I've actually heard of that in Arizona.
Yes.
Where they wanted to build a 1 million home community. And they're like, there's no way we can do this.
We can't serve the people. Yeah. So having something like a water efficiency rating standard, perhaps could show that it's not like the same old. Maybe there's some kind of leeway in there. So now there's a metric. It isn't just all permits are denied, but it may be all permits that don't include homes with a score below this level in the water efficiency rating.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing, and that will also affect commercial buildings too, because commercial buildings use water sometimes to process, but definitely for people that are in the buildings. And then the last thought, sort of again on the cusp, is the metrics of decarbonization. That's a real thing that I hear talked about more and more, especially in the energy rating community that I'm in, and looking at things like time of use, of course, for the energy, as well as time of resource, which means what is putting the power onto the grid at what time, what type of resource.
Yeah, because you see that meme of the solar car and the guy's so proud of it, and then you follow the transmission line to the coal plant.
Right.
And that's the big thing that I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos about, is the intermittency effect of renewables, and how do you deal with that? Because The Simpsons did a really good episode on it, where Homer was watching a NFL football game, and he's like watching it, and everyone's super excited, and he's like bragging because he built a wind turbine. And he's like, yeah, you know what? We're green. We're off the grid, everything. And then the wind stops. All the power shuts down. And so
the only thing I'll say is, don't make personal and business decisions based on The Simpsons.
Well, yeah, but
and there's a lot going on.
Interesting to see it's actually permeated popular culture.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I interviewed on my podcast recently Sean McLaughlin, who's the founder of Emporia Energy out of Littleton, Colorado. He's looking at his next. He's got home energy monitors, one of which I have. He has vehicle chargers. He has home battery systems. His next product next year will be a bidirectional vehicle charger for electric vehicles, so that the vehicle itself
becomes a battery.
Could be the offload for the grid.
Huh. Interesting.
There are different areas of the country which is doing something called virtual power plants, VPPs, and I'm in a working group for that too. So again, these things are on the cusp. They're being tried out in different areas, but keep your eyes and ears open.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all of that, because there's another YouTube channel, 2-Bit Da Vinci, which he does a lot of stuff on like carbon CO2 batteries, which I didn't know about. So for example, you use CO2, and because of how it acts as a gas, it can actually store a lot of latent energy. And so you charge it and then you let it basically pressurize, and then it blows through a turbine, which creates energy. So it's essentially an air battery, which is interesting. It's kind of like a hydro battery in a way.
Mhm.
And then he does a lot of stuff on like solid state batteries or silica batteries in lieu of lithium batteries. Very interesting stuff. We're on the cusp of a lot of interesting storage, because that is truly the gigantic barrier to renewables, is the storage side of things.
Absolutely.
So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. All right. Well,
Okay.
thanks so much for being on
welcome.
here. This was fun, and I enjoyed getting to geek out a little bit. So
Good.
it was
I
enjoyable.
really appreciate the chance to talk to your audience.
Yeah, definitely. So with that being said, thanks so much for being on here.
Thanks, Phil.
All right. Take care. Okay, folks, I hope you enjoyed that interview. It was definitely informative, kind of crazy, all the things. I don't know how this guy sleeps, all the different things he's involved in, wealth of information, great podcaster, great entrepreneur. He's given me a lot of really wise advice. Actually shared a program with me that Goldman Sachs is running for entrepreneurs and small business owners that I'm definitely going to be taking part in. So just an all-around good guy. And I encourage you to check out his podcast, as well as check out TruTech Tools if you're looking for any potential tools or sensors. Definitely check them out. All links will be available at podcast.smartbuildingsacademy.com/387. Once again, that's podcast.smartbuildingsacademy.com/387. And like I said, if you're listening to this on the day it goes live, definitely check out our Cyber Monday sale, 40% off using coupon code CyberMonday22. Thanks so much for being here, folks. And I look forward to seeing you on our next podcast episode.